Hello and welcome to your 6th JQuery tutorial. Today we'll further discuss some JQuery features. So to start off, as we can see, I've already made a table and it's really simple. It has a border of 1 and we're basically listing companies and countries, and that is what I've done. And in my JQuery code, what I've done is I've made my document ready function code, and inside I've given it design and I've given it for the odd rows. So we basically have two selectors here, our TR selector and our odd selector, which selects each element with an odd index number. And so the starting value is 0, and hence why we have these 3 odd rows in yellow. We can do the same exact thing for even elements. So I can write even, and let's change the color to, let's say, silver, just like this. Save, refresh. So let's go ahead and move on. What we're going to do is we're going to create a input, and its value, its default value is just text. So we can save this and refresh, and we'll get this input box with writing text. We can give it a method using jQuery. And what we can write is our $, and we're going to select our input selector, and I'm going to use the blur method function just like this, and inside I'm going to give it a alert which will say hello. Now let's save and refresh, and let's understand what blur does. So to be exact, the blur event occurs when an element loses focus, and it triggers the blur event or attaches a function to run when a blur event occurs. So now when I click on my input box, nothing happens. If I click somewhere else, we're going to see that we're going to get our alert. So when it loses focus, if that makes sense. If I click on it, nothing will happen. If I enter text in it, whatever. However, when I click on another field, like in the body area, I will get my alert. Let's move on. Let's also copy this. Okay, so comment on this one and copy it. Let's change blur for change. So what this does is when the value of an element has been changed, so it triggers the change event or attaches a function to run when a change event occurs. Let's go ahead, save this, refresh. So with blur, if we wrote something, let me actually show you it. So let me save and refresh. Okay, if I write something, click on a different field, it will work. It won't work again. So it will only work if I add something to it. However, here, if we save, refresh, if I type something, hello, it won't happen. If I add in like a 1, it will still work. So after the content has been changed, the change event occurs for text fields or text areas. Now instead of alert, we can easily do something else like hide our table. That is the table selector and our hide method. With 1 second, save, refresh, we see that this basically happens. So if I write something in my input box, click somewhere else, my table will be hidden, it will disappear. And so the difference between these two functions is that the blur function will fire when the element no longer has focus. The change function will run when the value of the element is changed. Now let's also comment on this code and move on. Let's make a code where, due to the click on the table, a function will work. So go ahead and type in your $. We're going to select our table and the click method. I'm going to open my function just like this, and I can easily just copy this code right here, and let's change this for 2000. Save, refresh. So here is our table. When I click on it, we're going to see that it will disappear. We can do the same exact thing with DBL click, which is double click, and let's change this for TD, so we're doing it for individual rows and columns. and we're gonna change this to this so it knows which exact one it is. Let's save, refresh. Now if I double click right here, we're gonna see that Google will disappear. If I double click on this USA, it will disappear. Bitcoin, Vans, South Korea, whatever, Japan, and we can see that the places also change. So as we see, I've only done it for my TDs, so the table data cells, and nothing can be done with table headers with this code. Let's make our Google, so the first company, a link, so a ref google.com, and let's close our A tag. Let's save, let's refresh, let's try it. We're going to be sent to Google with this hyperlink. Now let's try and make every single link on our page passive. So what we do is our $, and we're going to select our A, so we're basically preventing all of the links, and we're going to make a function, and inside of this function we're going to write event, and open your curly braces. Inside we're going to type in event.prevent, so prevent, and default, just like this. So what we're doing with this code is we're basically preventing a link from opening the URL. Let's save, refresh, and if I click on Google, we see that it is changing colors, and it did also just disappear because of this code. Let's comment on it, and if I click on Google, nothing will happen. It just won't go to its destined URL. And we can also try it with this one as well, so the second one. Let's copy it, paste it here, and let's change this with smentertainment.com. Save, refresh, nothing will happen. If we also get rid of this code, save, refresh, if I click on it, I will be taken to the SM Entertainment website. As we can see right here, here we are. So this code basically is super simple. It prevents any links from actually working, so just like that. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's make a div with the ID of A1, close this div, and let's make another one, A2, and for this one let's make an aside tag which defines some content aside from the content it is placed in. And let's make another div, copy, paste. This is going to be A3, this is going to be A4, and A5. So 4 divs and 1 aside tag with the IDs from A1 to A5. Now in CSS, let's go ahead and give them some designs. So for our A1, we'll give it some simple things like a background, which will be aqua, width 80VW, and height 80VH. Now we can copy and paste this a couple times, but we need to change some of the parameters. So A2, what we'll do for A2, we'll make it maroon, and we'll make this 60. We'll make it, let's say, magenta. A4, and there's also another one. So there's 5 IDs. So let's change this to 40, this to 40 as well. Change this to 40, this one as well. This is going to be 20, 20. This is going to be A5. This is going to be green. This one's going to be purple. And the sizes will go for 10 and 10. And let's now go down to the divs and let's change them up a little bit. So let's take them all in this first big div. So A1 is going to be the big div. Okay, so if we give them this structure, what this means is that this is our first big div, and inside is the A2, and inside of the A2 is A3, inside of A3 is A4, and A5 is in the A4. So they're all inside of the first big div, which is our A1, as you can see right here. So if we go ahead, save, refresh, we're going to get something that looks a little like this. Now to our div ID A5, so to our A5 div, let's give some borders using JQuery. What we're going to do is we're going to select our A5, with a hashtag just like this, a5.css, and we're going to write border, comma, and we're going to write 4 pixels to make it dotted and yellow, just so we can see it properly. And as we can see right here, our A5 div now has borders around it, which are yellow and 4 pixels. Let's first of all change this to its proper structure just so we can see it properly. And as we see, everything is looking right and we can see it properly and we can view it properly if something is wrong. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and give our A5 elements parents borders. So we can duplicate this and let's change its color just so we can see it. And we're not going to change anything in the selector because we're talking about the parents of the A5 element, for which we're going to use the JQuery parents method. Now if I save and refresh, we're going to see that our A4, so the parent of A5 div, has now a blue border. And what we can also do, instead of parent, we can write parents, which means that it will give borders to every single parent on our web page. And as we can see, even the body area has borders because we've made parents and not parent. And I can change its color to red. Here it is. Now we don't need borders all around our body area, so what we can also do right here is we can comment on this one and we can write parents until, and we're going to write until where we want it to work, and we want it to work until body, which is right here. And if I save this and refresh, we're going to see that only the body section, so the divs, get the borders, the parents inside, by the way. And I can easily change body for A3, let's say. If I save this and refresh, we're gonna see that only the parents of A2, so this is A5 and this is A4, so I've written until A3, so the parents of A5 and 4, which is A3, I can change it to aside. Save, refresh. It will be the same thing as aside is essentially A3 right here, aside A3, hence why it's the same. And we can write aside instead of the ID. Let's continue. Let's also comment on this code and let's go ahead, create a checkbox. So input type checkbox with the ID of T1. Let's also create a button with the ID of B1, and inside of B1 let's write check and uncheck, so it can be checked or unchecked. And in our jQuery code, let's go ahead and write the button click function, which is hashtag B1 dot click, and we open a function. Inside we're going to go ahead and type in something new. So for T1 we're going to write .prop, which is a new jQuery method that we're learning, and we're going to make the check, let's say statement, in this case true. So I have to write a comma and I have to write true. So the prop method sets or returns properties and values of the selected element. And I made a slight mistake here. I have to type in a Y right here. Now save, refresh, we're going to get our checkbox. If I click on my checkbox button, we will get our checked mark. Now we easily see that when we click on it, it gets its check mark. However, if I click on it to uncheck, it will not work. So let's get this sorted as well. So we need to check this with if to make it work. Let's copy this, paste, get rid of this. So if the T1 checked property is true, we're going to write true right here, and we're going to write a bracket right here as well. We're going to open and close our curly braces, put it right here, and if it is true, this is going to be false. And let's do the opposite way as well, which is else. And for else, we're going to just copy this, paste it, and we're going to change it for true. Let's save, refresh. Now if I check it, it's going to work. If I uncheck it, it's going to work. That means that the value changes and it turns to false. And this is basically the exact opposite thing of it, hence why we can get this to work. So now we're going to get scrolling, and as you can see right here, I've commented on my code and I have my window scroll function open, and inside I have a if which says that this scroll top method sets or returns the vertical scroll bar position for the selected elements, and we're going to basically get the value of scrolling from the top. So we need to display this somehow, so let's do it with input. Let's give it a ID and we'll write I11 for example, and in our jQuery code we're going to select our I11 ID'd input, and through val, so the value, we're going to get the value of scroll top at this exact moment. And I need to close it right here, this, and I need to write scroll just like this, and let's give it some designs using our CSS. And all we're going to do is we're going to give it a position fixed, so go ahead and type in position fixed, and we also need to open and close our curly braces right here, and let's see and refresh. So now we see that the position is in fact fixed during scrolling, and we also need to put a hashtag right here as it is ID, and we need to put in a full stop right here. And if I save this, now refresh, and if I scroll, we're going to see that my values appear right here, and this, so the input box is actually fixed on my web page, and we will see it all the time. As we see, it only goes up to 89, and this is because we don't really have anything on our page besides the divs and the table. So we can add something right here. I can add BR tags, and I can duplicate them a couple times, this, and I can write some text. So save, refresh, we're going to see that it will now go to 557, and my text is right here. I can make it more or less, it doesn't really matter, and I can write some text here as well. Save, refresh, as we can see now goes to 611, and my texts are right here. So as we know in website, when we've scrolled down to the way bottom, there's usually something that will let us go up straight away, and we're going to do that today. We're going to insert a image of an arrow pointing upward, and here is my already prepared code for that, which is just an img source up.jpg, and we're going to give it some design using CSS. And so I already have it prepared. I have my width 3VW position, which I've written wrong, position fixed right to the right 5 pixels and from the bottom 5 pixels, and we need to write our jQuery code as well, so right here. So from the get-go we have to have the image be hidden, so we need to write a code for that, which is just the hide method. And if I save this and refresh, we're gonna see that there is no picture right here. If I go ahead and comment on it, save, refresh, my picture will appear right here. However, it does nothing just yet. Now let's get rid of these, and what we have to do is when the scroll top value is bigger than, let's say, 120, the image needs to fade in. So let's get rid of this. Let's write our img selector just like this, and we're going to type in fade in, so it will actually fade in, and its value will be slow, so it will be a little bit slow. Now let's see. So what we actually see is that the values are not showing up. This is because we've actually missed something in our code, and we need to basically put our selector, so our I11 selector with the value with dot value and window with scroll top. And now if I save, refresh, we'll see that the value works completely fine. And now look at it carefully. When it reaches 120, my picture will fade in, and here we are. And now let's do the same exact thing of this, just with fade out. So we're gonna put else. Inside we're putting the same exact code, change this with fade out. Now let's save, refresh. When it reaches back to 120, it basically fades out. And I can make my BR tags a little bit more longer. So just like this. Let's save this now, refresh. Now if it's bigger than 120, it appears. If it's smaller, it disappears. And what we're going to do to actually get it properly working, right here, we're going to make a tag with the ID of A1, and we're going to close it just before the image. And so on the image, we're basically placing a link, which is going to be our file, which is called JQuery 6.html, and we're going to set its position, which is going to be A1, which was the A tag that we just made. Let's save this, let's refresh, and now let's comment on this code as it is not needed at all, and we're doing this because it basically blocks the links, just as we learned. And if I save and refresh, and if I scroll down, my button appears. If I click on it, I will be taken back to the very top. And yeah, that was all that I had prepared for today. Thank you so much for watching.